All right, hi everybody. I know this is totally ambitious, but I'm going to try and make a series of videos on the classroom management issues that we talked about. I'm going to actually call them classroom leadership, because I think if we think of it as management, then it's always about what are we doing to make things run the way we think smoothly is, and that never really works out. So I'm going to call it classroom leadership, because how you lead the classroom and what styles you use will really help in the relationship that you have with the students. One thing to learn is that it's always challenging and it's always unexpected. So I'm going to add a couple of articles to this. They're really short to read, and I'm going to tell you right now, I totally don't agree with everything that's in the articles. As a matter of fact, there's some things I really disagree with. So we're going to take a look at those articles, real short, and then I also have some slides that I put together. We did a couple of them early, so I want to do a quick review. And then what we will do is I'll put together a couple of other pieces, and that way we'll have a package of things related to classroom management. Now, the thing that I think is really important here is that you're going to be coming into the classroom in September. And September, the beginning of the year, is the most important time to set the tone for the relationship that you build with your students. So just as a reminder, in the beginning of the semester, I did that hello activity, which enabled me to find out some things about you. So I learned a little bit more about you. I did it with you, so you learned some things about me. I did an introduction about me to sort of humanize me, make me more part of the team than the outsider. And then I also asked you to do that little quick write on, if not a teacher. That gives me just one other angle to get to know everyone in the classroom. So it is really important to get to know the students in the classroom. So it's going to be a tighter timeline, and maybe we can talk about some strategies over the summer that you might be able to do so that you can start in September in the best possible place. So the things that I had mentioned last time was leadership strategies, like having clear expectations for the behavior in your class, like actually saying it, perhaps creating norms for when you're in front of the students. The materials, we talked about how setting up the materials is important just so you know where they are, and you seem to be kind of the expert of the room. That's really helpful. We also talked about, let's see, what else did we talk about? We talked about the technology. Technology is always rough, and I'm the first to admit I'm willing to experiment with it, knowing that it's probably not going to work out. So letting the students know that up front so that they can help you, like many of you had helped me when we were putting together the things for the last week's workshop. We talk about those causes of misbehavior, seeking attention, feeling inadequate, student-teacher relationships, seeking power. We'll talk about some scenarios that have to do with that. That will make things put into kind of a different perspective for us, because sometimes it's hard to understand why the students are behaving the way that they're behaving. So we had talked about these categories of misbehavior. There's sort of that low-level category of misbehavior, that minor. That's where we're going to do things like proximity. But even telling the students about proximity, like when I'm moving around the room towards you, I'm giving you a signal. There's we give them the eye, give them a high sign, ask a question, redirect the entire class. Those are all ways to handle some of the minor things. And the big benefit of that is it doesn't really destroy the pace of the class. It doesn't stop, it doesn't open up an opportunity for there to escalate the situation. So we want to think about the behaviors in these different levels. So there's minor. The other things for minor behavior that you can do is simply to ask some questions in the class, to engage a group of students. I mentioned that redirection is a big part of it. Sometimes asking critical questions. If I know that there is going to the class going to be some issues with behavior, then maybe what I'll do is I'll talk to those students ahead of time, make a plan for that day, ask them how they would expect the class to run today. Just having that conversation right up front. The second level of misbehavior is that sort of moderate. That's where something really has disrupted the education in the classroom. It's a behavior that you had to address during the lesson. So I'm going to say right now for that one is just to make sure that there's choices involved. So having a choice gives options and doesn't paint us into a corner, and it doesn't create opportunities to escalate the situation again. So if there's a misbehavior, it should be known throughout the class that that's something that can't be tolerated and has to be addressed. So make sure that, again, those norms, those rules for the classroom are well known by the students. Again, I'm going to say choice is the big part of this. So when it reaches that level, we'll talk about some strategies with how to have conversations with students, how to address in a sort of respectful, productive way. The yelling thing, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Letting the student know that you're upset often works, but avoiding confrontation and perhaps having a critical conversation with the student is helpful. And we'll talk a little bit about that critical conversation, perhaps with some scenarios. With this level, if there has been an infraction of a rule, we need to have an action plan. That action plan should include what the student's going to do, but also what the teacher's going to do. What the benefit is of the action plan, what may be some additional benefits along the way, like a broader picture, and then finally, a really specific outline of a timeline. So tomorrow in class, I would expect this. Let's take a look on Friday to see if there's any differences. So that's that. What are the students' responsibilities? What are the teachers' responsibilities? What is the reward benefit? And then what's the timeline? So the last thing I just want to talk about, that third level of misbehavior in the classroom. We really need to be aware of this one too. I call this one like the 911 level, because that means that it's not something that you can solve in the classroom. So you're going to have to involve someone else. That may be the administration, it could be a guidance counselor, it could be the nurse, it could be some combination of all of them. And that type of misbehavior is going to be something where students or their safety is at risk. Violence is a possibility. Threats in the classroom, or anything that comes up that is actually illegal, and you're going to have to get someone else involved. In my many, many years in the classroom, it's unbelievably rare. It's not unbelievably rare that I have to perhaps talk to the principal or an assistant principal about a particular behavior, but that I'd have to go to the level where a lot of authorities had to get in. It was extremely rare, but it does happen. So we want to know that, what are the procedures in the school? What is the setup for that? Who do I get help from? Who do I contact? Okay, that's my first deal. I'm going to try and put this into some kind of a video, upload it so that we can ask a couple questions about it, and then we'll continue through the semester, because I do think this is going to be really important when you start again in September, to be on the best footing as soon as possible. All right, we'll give it a go.